so much for joining us this evening, Mr. Prabhu. You need no introduction, but let me say a few words to laud your contributions to India and to the world. Mr. Suresh Prabhu is the current India Sherpa to the G20 and represents Andhra Pradesh in the Rajya Sabha. A chartered accountant turned politician, he has held various ministries during his political career, spanning over 3 decades. He is known as a man of action, and he's played a pivotal role in transforming Indian Railways into a highly sustainable and responsive organization. In his short stint as the Minister for Commerce and Industry, he brought in major reforms to hasten India's growth towards becoming a $5 trillion economy. Well known for his growth-driven policy making, he was featured among the top 3 Indian leaders of the future by Asia Week magazine, Hong Kong. He is also part of various global organizations and strategic dialogues like the Global Water Partnership, the World Economic Forum, and many others. Thank you so much for being with us this evening, Mr. Prabhu. We look forward to an informative and insightful talk by you for the next half hour or so. And at your request, we will not have questions this evening. We appreciate your joining us. Over to you, Samarth.
Thank you, Madam Anju Seth, for this very good introduction, as well as for inviting me for this program. And I thank my young friends for being there in this program. They are all, I can see the master of ceremony is a very samarth person, strong person, so competent person. So therefore, I think all of you, he represents, I think, all others who are as strong as he is.
Hanji, Sureshi, all very strong, very talented, very competent. This is brand IIM Calcutta.
I know. And that's why you're such a great leader to mold them and make them into bright young management graduates over a period of time. So thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you. Thank you very much. You know, of course, it's an honor for me to speak on this very platform of such a prestigious institution. And also, as I said, with such a great leader like what you are, and all your very competent students who are really aspiring to be the citizens of a great country and try to discharge their responsibility as citizens in various spheres of life. So all the best to all of you. Let me wish you a very Merry Christmas as well as a very noble day today, because I started my political career, ministerial career under Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee. I had 6 cabinet positions under him. He treated me like his son, and today is his birthday, and we are celebrating as Mr. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has announced as the Good Governance Day. So on such a good day, we are discussing this. So thank you very much. Briefly, because unfortunately for paucity of time, but I'm sure I'll come to your campus soon and speak there and meet all of you together. I think today you want me to talk about future global challenges, strategy for India, right? Okay. So let me look at what are the challenges before us. Some challenges are common to the world, which obviously will be our challenges. Like, for example, a big challenge for the world is going to be the climate change. Climate change is the most threatening issue, existential challenge for the whole humanity. Therefore, this is one challenge we have to deal with. And we must have strategies in place, which we are doing by changing energy mix, by going out with a reduction of greenhouse gases strategy, for adaptation strategy, because if climate change is a reality, adaptation is a necessity. So we are working on all that. So that is one global challenge. The second big global challenge is terrorism, which you all know, unfortunately, the world is based on certain principles. Live and let live. We also believe that each one of us must have a space in our family, in our society, in the community of world. If each one of us gets space, and each one of us have a freedom to express ourselves, with a limit of what we accept as the freedom of expression, I think there should not be any issue really. But it seems we are seeing now the growing threat to global peace coming from terrorism. So this is one major challenge for the world, and which India will be also facing in a great manner. The third challenge is of economic security of the world. As we know, because we have grown over a period of time thanks to economic interdependence. See, the world has grown because each country contributed to others' growth. It's a very interesting concept in which we can grow because of others and we let others grow because of us. And that is how it happened through a very great process of economic interdependence. How did that happen? This happened through a process which we can call as multilateralism. Multilateralism is not just for economic growth, but for dealing with all global challenges. We adopted and accepted certain principles that each one of us will have a voice into the global affairs. So we created a lot of global institutions. Some of those global institutions like United Nations, some of them like World Trade Organization, some of them to fight the environmental issues, and many others. But each of these institutions was based on certain principle. And the principle was multilateralism. Nobody will take unitary action. We all will agree together to take concerted action to deal with global challenges. So this multilateralism is under severe threat today. And therefore, I was saying economic issues will also be one of the big challenge for India at a time when we need to grow faster and bigger because of to meet the aspirations of our own people. Our population is young, more than 35%, or more than 65% people are below age of 35. So almost 2/3 of the population is under 35. And you can imagine each one of them are not even become, because of the now life expectancy has increased so much, the best part of their life has yet to be lived. And they therefore have huge aspirations. Those aspirations can be met only through economic growth. And economic growth is not possible unless we have economic interdependence with other countries. And that economic relationship with other countries will be determined strongly by multilateral institutions like WTO and others. Unfortunately, we are seeing a big threat to multilateralism, big threat. I hope, for example, now we are seeing a change in leadership in the United States. Though some people are disputing the leader result, but obviously, as the Senate Majority Leader mentioned, who belongs to the Republican Party, the President Trump's party, he said, electoral college has spoken. And therefore, Trump is not a winner, though Trump is disputing it. And obviously, Biden is a winner. If Biden now, not if, but he is a president-elect, our Prime Minister has congratulated him, like almost all the world leaders. Biden is going to probably look at the world in a different way. Particularly, the issue of multilateralism will be now seen to be in a different perspective thanks to Biden's worldview. WTO, which was almost under, is right now under on the life support system because US had refused to accept the appointment of judges for dispute redressal mechanism. And as you know, WTO is a trade body, and every trade there will be a dispute. And if the dispute redressal mechanism is not there, how can you actually do trade? And if you cannot trade, then what is the World Trade Organization? So hopefully, under President Biden, that issue will come to a very important forum focus, and I hope it gets addressed. But for India, economic growth is very important. And as Madam said, just mentioned, our dream of $5 trillion economy, which I had prepared a roadmap, or $10 trillion economy by doubling economy after 5 trillion, all of that depends upon our engagement with remaining part, other part of the world. And that part of the world relationship will be determined by institutions like WTO. And if WTO is under threat, how do we survive? This is another challenge India is going to face over a period of time, and we'll have to deal with this. While we do all this, Some of these, as I said, are common threat to the world. Whether it is climate change, whether it is terrorism, whether it is multilateralism, or whether it is related to now new health crisis. Just imagine, the global challenge. We live in such a situation in which if you find a mutation of a virus, it may happen in other part far away from India, but it immediately will get affected other part of the world. The present pandemic has affected more than 200 countries or territories in the world as per the WHO's own record. Just imagine what's going to happen if health becomes such a big issue, which in turn affects the economy, which affects social life, which affects everybody. So this is another global challenge we'll be dealing with in the next few years' time. So these are many, and I can add some more to the global challenges of the world, which India will be also the sufferer or also has to face those challenges. But one few challenges India will be facing in geostrategic area. As you know, we as a country, over 1,000, maybe 10,000 years in which we are a living civilization, there is not a single instance in which India has held territorial ambition against other countries in the world. Though India was one of the richest country in the world, probably if not the richest, the second richest for sure, more than 27% of the global GDP at peak of its time in maybe 300 years ago. At that time also, despite having such an economic might, we never went and conquered somebody's territories. But we live in an environment, in a neighborhood, in which we have some neighbors which have territorial ambitions, which transgress into India's territories. We live in a neighborhood in which our two neighbors, Pakistan and China, have nuclear weapons. And we have to develop nuclear capabilities only as deterrent against such threats. But today we are in a situation in which the global map is changing fast. US, the largest economy, the biggest power, military-wise, scientific capabilities-wise, is slowly ceding ground to others. US was always playing a leadership role. And US being a democracy, US being based on certain values, we had an affinity to United States as a country, as a society, because we shared values, we shared certain principles. We are seeing in the last few years' time that US is retracting from this global responsibility. And therefore, that is going to have far-reaching consequences for whole world for sure, but even for India. If we do not have an ally, a strategic partner, which we have in the United States, which is willing to defend other countries for their shared values that US has with them, it's going to be a different kind of a situation. So when we live in a neighborhood wherein not necessarily all our neighbors share the same values that we have, and if we are not having a strategic partners who are willing to actually come to us, work with us, share with us, because we share those values and try to defend those values, we are going to have some strategic challenge. And US has been withdrawing from so many of these global issues. US withdrew from WHO recently, at a time when health emergency was at the peak. US withdrew from Paris Accord, when the climate change has never been a bigger threat than this as it is today. US has refused to work on so many global platforms and decided to take unilateral action, not just in the last 4 years when under President Trump, even earlier. That has some large and long drawn consequences on the whole world. And therefore, we have to position ourselves in such a way that we have to defend our own self. We have to find out our own strength and capabilities. The second important element that is happening in the world is and incidentally, US is India's biggest trading partner. So not only we share values, but we also have a big trading relationship with the United States. And as you know, more than almost 4 million Indians work in the United States. Most of them are naturalized citizens. There are many students who go to the United States. So when US changes its stance toward the rest of the world, it is going to have implications on India as well, and Indians as well. So we have to figure that out and reposition ourselves. Second key element in the changing world scenario is European Union. Yesterday, UK has already withdrawn from EU, but yesterday they have luckily signed an agreement with EU and UK. That's a good sign. But EU is again a very important partner for India. Why? Because like United States, they believe in democracy. They believe in certain values, which we also have, same faith. And together, based on these values, based on democratic principles, we have a commonality of interest to look at the rest of the world. EU is also a little bit weakening in terms of economic growth. Now, the extent to which you will get affected because of Brexit, we have to see over a period of time. Therefore, I'm happy that at least the no-deal Brexit would have been the worst, but deal is already happened. We have to study what is the impact of that. But still, EU will not be as formidable as it was once upon a time. UK, in any case, is a large economy, little now comparable with India's economic size, 2.9 trillion, and in UK is somewhere near that. So UK going out of EU obviously gets weakened because Germany, UK, France, Italy, they are the major pillars of EU. So we have to also figure out how do we really have a geopolitical view when EU is also not as strong as what they were. In east of India, we have ASEAN, with whom we have a very strong relationship. ASEAN has 10 countries, and we share a very good relationship with them. We also free trade agreement with them. Singapore is a very important nucleus in that relationship, and we again have a bilaterally very good relationship with Singapore, but also other member countries in ASEAN. So we'll have to develop and deepen that relationship with ASEAN very importantly, because ASEAN is our immediate neighbor. Just imagine Myanmar, which is a member of ASEAN, is our landline member. Indonesia, which is the most populous country in ASEAN, is our maritime neighbor. So we have a close relationship with them, and we'll have to deepen that relationship in a very significant way. So going to the east of India, Japan and Korea, again, are democracies, and we have strong relationship. We have during 91, we came out with a principle of look east policy. Prime Minister has made it into, our present Prime Minister Narendra Modi has made it into act east policy. We'll have to engage with these two countries in a very extensive way, along with Australia. And we are already working with Australia, New Zealand, Korea, Japan. And we are actually trying to take them into our friend circle as our partners. The Pacific Islands, I must congratulate our Prime Minister Modi that he has taken the initiative of engaging with the Pacific Island countries. He invited them, he has been having bilateral meeting with them. It's a brilliant diplomatic initiative. Small countries, so nobody wanted to bother about them. We of course have a different relation, like for example, Fiji. which is one of the Pacific Island nation, and with our people of Indian origin have lived there in large numbers. So we have a direct relationship with them ethnically, but also politically and diplomatically. That's a very good initiative, and we are trying to work with that part of the world. With Mongolia, Mongolia has only two neighbors, Russia and China. Mongolia always talks about third neighbor, and they consider also as a third neighbor, though we don't share borders, but we share values. So that again is a very important relationship for we have to cultivate. Russia, though not now I'm not going to the east, but I'm just talking about other part of the world. Russia has been our very important partner, strategic partner for a long time. We had a friendship treaty with Russia. In fact, if you recall, in 1971, when Bangladesh was being liberated, Bangladesh was going to be created and Pakistan was divided into two parts. Even at that time, though we were threatened by Seventh Fleet coming from United States, Russia stood with us. And we have a very strong relationship with Russia, which will have to deepen and strengthen over a period of time, because Russia, as you know, is the largest country by landmass in the world. And we have historical relationship with them, which will have to again strengthen in the next few years' time. The Middle East of India, Middle East, not of India, but the Middle East of the world, is again a most important but most volatile part of the world. We get our energy security from that part, and we have to depend on them. But we are now trying to work with them in such a way that we can provide them food security, so that there is an economic interdependence that will grow. Large number of Indians who work there are also providing remittances back home, and we got $82 billion of remittance. The remittance is the largest ever from any part of the world, and India is a recipient thanks to that part of the world also. Central Asia is another very important part of the world, and we'll have to work with them, and we are already working with them. I just left out Africa and Latin America. Africa has been, really speaking, the backyard of your diplomacy. We lost out for some time because of some of our friends trying to poach into some of our friends. But now again, we have to restore that relationship strongly, as well as in Latin America, though very far from us, is a very, very fertile, very rich in resources, and we must have relationship. With Latin America, we have another relationship through BRICS. Brazil, which is the largest country in Latin America, and we have very close relationship with them, along with Argentina. And Argentina and Brazil both are our friends in G20 as well. And Brazil is our member in BRICS. So we have to work with all of them. We are working on a lot of multilateral initiatives through Indian Ocean Rim nations, through BIMSTEC and many others. And these strategic challenges India is going to face can be addressed only by diplomacy. But to have diplomacy as a guiding or as a principal force, we must have economic growth in India. And economic growth only can help to remove poverty in India, so therefore our domestic challenges can be addressed. Economic growth can help us to have modern army, military, to defend our borders, to defend our sovereignty, and also help diplomacy to progress. So ultimately, our strategic challenges can be met through economic growth. We have other soft power which can also help to promote a diplomacy, whether it is religion, Buddhism, which is actually practiced in different parts of the world but respected in many other countries, which was originated in India. So we must use that as a platform. India's yoga, which Prime Minister Modi started International Day of Yoga, which is actually promoting soft diplomacy. We have a soft power in which so many of Indian spiritual gurus are respected globally. ISKCON is internationally accepted movement. Swaminarayan temples are also respected globally. Even Swami Rajneesh, once upon a time, though he was in Oregon and he faced certain difficulties, but there were so many millions of followers that he had. So that means India's soft power is pretty strong, which again has to be used to deal with strategic issues that we are going to face in the world. But let me end, because we have to end. I will say that we are living in a very difficult neighborhood. surrounded by certain neighbors who have different ideas, not necessarily peaceful in nature. We have to counter them with our full might, which Prime Minister Modi is doing. We are entering a world which is very uncertain, but also very difficult, in which that so-called global world order, which allowed us to grow, is also under some question mark, if not under threat. And therefore, in such a changing global order, to meet our aspirations, to fulfill our own mission, we have to have a very good strategic policy. I'm very happy that we are discussing it today, because you are the ones, young boys, young girls, and of course, such an enlightened leader like Madam Seth will be the ones who will be discussing it together over a period of time. I'm very happy that I got an opportunity to talk to such an enlightened lot of people. I look forward to being there for 7 Lakes Fest again as early as possible. And as you are saying, we are also one of the sponsors is Think India. So I was just trying to think for you also. I am very happy that the others are also participating in this program. Let me congratulate my young friends who are there to take this forward. I hope these 7 lakes merge into a big river, because lakes have a role to play. They are very good water bodies, but over a period of time, these 7 lakes have to flow like rivers, in which we'll see that our civilization, which grew around the banks of the rivers, will also now, the future of India will be flowing like the big rivers that India has, and we had even bigger rivers in the past. I hope those rivers also guide us in future, like the lakes will help us to go into the bigger stream like rivers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. That was really an insightful session. It was a pleasure to have you here today with us and hear your views on a subject that concerns each and every one of us. I can surely say we learned something valuable today that will help us become responsible citizens, not just of this country, but also of the world. Also, I would like to thank everyone for joining us for this wonderful session and making it a huge success. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And please send me your link so that I can fit it also.
Okay, sir.